My sister got a $3,500 spa weekend, my brother got a $900 console, and I got $12 candles for my birthday. I walked out, and now everything's falling apart without me. I thought the sting of a cheap, regifted birthday candle was rock bottom. I was wrong. It was just the prelude to a betrayal so deep, it threatened to unravel my entire future. It was my 26th birthday, and I sat at the dining table, watching my parents scroll through their phones, barely glancing up as I unwrapped my gift. The tissue paper came away, revealing a set of discount candles, the $11.99 price sticker still glaring from the bottom. Autumn breeze. The same scent that gave Aunt Carol migraines last Christmas. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," Mom mumbled, already back to her screen. A wave of nausea hit me. I'd just spent 3 hours cooking my own birthday dinner while everyone else lounged in the living room. Dad complained about the mixer noise. Marissa, my sister, asked for her portion without onions 10 minutes after I'd finished cooking the whole meal. "Thanks," I whispered, the word thick with unshed tears. My mind started playing a highlight reel of their recent extravagances, Mom's phone glowing with the confirmation for Marissa's $3,500 weekend at Stillwater Spa. Just 2 weeks before that, $900 gaming console delivered for Everett, my brother, which Dad insisted was necessary for his mental health. My fingers went numb. The cheap candles slipped from my grasp, bouncing off Mom's precious glass coffee table. The sickening sound of cracking glass echoed through the room. Everyone froze. Dad's head snapped up. Mom gasped. "What the hell, Rowan?" Dad roared. Jumping to his feet, his face flushed. "That table cost us $800. Not a word about my birthday. Not a single, 'Are you okay?' Only the shattered glass mattered." "You'll pay for that," he snarled. "Do you know how tight things are right now?" Oh, I knew. I was the one keeping their finances afloat. Just yesterday, I'd sat in my cubicle at Meridian Marketing, transferring my quarterly bonus. The money meant for my apartment deposit, straight into Dad's checking account. The truck payment was 2 months overdue, the same truck he used to drive Marissa to job interviews and Everett to gaming tournaments. Last month, everyone had comforted Marissa when she quit another job after 3 weeks. The manager was mean, she'd pouted, dabbing at non-existent tears. He expected me to come in on time. Dad patted her hand. "Take your time finding something right for you, princess." That same night, he cornered me in the kitchen. "Your share of utilities is going up. Things are tight." But as Dad ranted about the table, something finally shifted inside me. A plate that had held too much weight for too long finally cracked. "Am I your daughter, or just your maid and ATM?" My voice was quiet, but it was steady. The room went silent. Mom's eyes widened. "Don't be so dramatic, Rowan," she finally said, waving dismissively. "It's just a birthday. We've given you everything." Dad nodded, his expression darkening. "After all we've done for you, ungrateful doesn't begin to cover it." My hand stopped trembling. With deliberate calm, I reached into my pocket, removed my house key, and placed it on the damaged table. "What are you doing?" Mom's voice rose. "I'm done," I said simply. Dad reddened further. "Done? What about the table? What about next month's mortgage? Your sister needs new clothes for interviews." Not a word about me leaving. Only about what it would cost them. "We'll lose the house without her contribution," Dad muttered, calculating the financial impact, not the emotional significance. I stood up straight, a cold realization washing over me. This is all I was to them. A reliable source of income, a maid, a cook. Not a daughter with dreams and needs. I shouldered my bag and walked toward the door, leaving behind the candles, the broken table, and 26 years of expectations. Behind me, Mom's voice followed. "If you walk out that door, don't expect to be welcomed back." I paused, hand on the doorknob. They're the only family I have. But as I stepped into the cool evening air, I realized that wasn't true. They stopped being my family long ago. They're just the people I've been supporting. And it was time for that to change. The envelope arrived 3 days after I walked out. Plain white, no return address. I almost tossed it with the junk mail, but the bank logo caught my eye. Inside, I found statements for credit cards I never applied for. 3 of them. All maxed out. All in my name. My knees buckled. I slid down against the refrigerator in Paige's apartment, the one I bought for my parents last Christmas when theirs died. The cold metal pressed against my spine, numbers blurring before my eyes. $8,700. $8,700 of debt I never created. My breath came in short gasps. The room spun. I spread the statements across the linoleum. A Best Buy card opened 2 years ago, right when Everett got his gaming setup. A department store card from last spring when Mom and Marissa went on their shopping spree for interview clothes. A general visa with charges from gas stations, restaurants, and the liquor store Dad frequented. It wasn't enough that I paid the mortgage, utilities, and groceries. They needed more. They stole my identity. I thought you might want to see those, Paige said from the doorway, her voice gentle. Careful. They came to the house yesterday. Your mom opened them, but I grabbed them when she wasn't looking. I pressed my palm against the cool floor to steady myself. How long have you known? I suspected something when your dad mentioned your excellent credit history last Thanksgiving. The way he said it felt wrong. The statement trembled in my hand. My signature, forged with practiced precision. Dad always said he could replicate anyone's handwriting. A talent I once found amusing. 30 minutes later, I stood in my parents' living room. They were arranged on the furniture. Like a tribunal, Dad in his recliner, Mom and Marissa on the sofa, Everett leaning against the wall. I remained standing, papers clutched in my hand. What exactly did you think would happen? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Dad crossed his arms. They're just emergency cards. Rowan, for family necessities. Gaming consoles and spa weekends are necessities? Oh, stop being so dramatic, Mom sighed, scrolling through her phone. This is what family does, we help each other. Help. The word tasted bitter. You committed fraud. Everett pushed off from the wall. You should be grateful. All those on-time payments gave you excellent credit. Until now, I said. Now I'm drowning in debt I didn't create. Marissa's face crumpled, right on cue. Why are you attacking us? After everything we've done for you. Dad stood, towering over me just like he did on my birthday. Lower your voice, the neighbors will hear. Good, I said. Let them hear how you've stolen from your own daughter. Mom set her phone down. For once, I had her full attention. We raised you, fed you, clothed you, and this is how you repay us. The statements in my hand suddenly weighed 1,000 pounds. With my marketing salary, these minimum payments would cost me $650 monthly. $650 I needed for an apartment deposit. For a life beyond these walls. $650 that would keep me trapped here, paying off their extravagances while they drained me dry. 5 years of career advancement erased by family greed. If you report this, Dad said, his voice dangerously low, it'll destroy our credit. The house, the car, everything would be at risk. My credit is already destroyed, I replied. But we're family, Mom insisted, as if the word itself was a binding contract. Family sticks together through everything. I looked around the room, at the television I paid for, the furniture I helped select, the family photos where everyone smiled while I stood slightly apart. This isn't family, I said finally. This is parasitism. Marissa gasped. Mom's eyes narrowed. Dad took a step toward me. I backed toward the door. I'll figure out what to do about the cards. But I'm not coming back. Where will you even go? Mom asked, her voice sharp with disbelief. You can't afford an apartment with your credit ruined. The knife twisted. They knew exactly what they were doing. She can stay with me, a voice said from behind me. Paige stood in the doorway, car keys in hand. I hadn't even heard her pull up. My spare room is yours, she continued, for as long as You need it. Dad's face darkened. This isn't your business. I made it my business when I saw what you've done to her, Paige replied, her voice level. That night, in Paige's guest room, I stared at the ceiling fan making lazy circles above me. The credit statement sat on the nightstand, a paper trail of betrayal. My phone buzzed with missed calls and texts, each one a small assault. As I lay in bed, I wondered if I should report the credit fraud or try to pay it off myself to avoid family consequences. Would pursuing justice bring me peace? Or would it only create more chaos in lives already hanging by a thread? What would you do when the people who should protect you become the ones you need protection from? The fan continued its slow rotation, offering no answers, only the soft sound of air moving in circles, much like my thoughts. The next day, my phone vibrated against the nightstand for the 4th time in 20 minutes. I didn't need to check the caller ID to know it was family again. They were relentless. How many calls today? Paige mumbled from her doorway, hair tousled from sleep. 17. I silenced the phone and flipped it face down. And that's just calls. The text started at 5 this morning. 4 days after placing my house key on the cracked coffee table, the Hartley family propaganda machine kicked into high gear. Dad called Uncle Jim and Aunt Susan last night, spinning a tale about their ungrateful daughter abandoning the family during difficult financial times. By noon, my inbox overflowed with messages from relatives I hadn't seen since Christmas. You always seemed like such a responsible girl, wrote Aunt Carol, who gave me the migraine-inducing candles. Family takes care of family. I dragged myself to the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back. Dark half-moons hung beneath bloodshot eyes. My skin looked sallow in the harsh light. I'd slept maybe 8 hours total since leaving home. My phone pinged with a Facebook notification. Mom had gone public. Her post appeared with a photo from last Thanksgiving, *heartbroken today as children you sacrifice everything for decide your own comfort matters more than family. Some daughters forget where they came from. Please pray for us during this difficult time. *23 sympathetic. Comments already. My stomach lurched. At work, I stared blankly at my computer screen, reading the same marketing report 3 times without comprehending a single word. My supervisor tapped my shoulder, making me jump. Everything okay, Rowan? Your numbers are down this week. Just a temporary situation, I managed, my voice thin as tissue paper. I'll catch up. But when my desk phone rang, my heart hammered so violently I nearly vomited. I developed a Pavlovian fear response to ringtones. Every call might be mom or dad with a new accusation or demand. Every email might contain another relative's disappointment. You need help, Paige said that evening, finding me huddled on her couch, scrolling through the growing pile of family messages. This is financial abuse, plain and simple. The words hit like a thunderclap. Abuse. Such an ugly, definitive term. They need help, I whispered, the automatic defense mechanisms kicking in. So do you. Paige gently took my phone and set it aside. My cousin went through something similar. She saw a credit counselor who specializes in family financial entanglements. I'm texting you her number. The next afternoon, I sat across from Marguerite Wells, a no-nonsense woman with kind eyes behind practical glasses. She listened without interruption as I detailed 5 years of family loans that were never repaid, credit cards opened in my name, and the constant expectation that my paycheck belonged to everyone but me. We'll document everything, she said, sliding a folder toward me. Every unauthorized charge, every account they opened without consent, every dollar they took. For the first time in days, I took a full breath. The following morning, something unexpected happened. Darcy from accounting appeared at my cubicle, holding a small cupcake with a single blue candle stuck in its center. 26 deserves more than discount candles, she said with a gentle smile. Something between a laugh and a sob escaped me as she lit it. We sat in the break room for 15 minutes, talking about nothing important. The Normalcy felt like oxygen after days underwater. That evening, a sharp knock at Paige's apartment door froze me mid-bite of microwave dinner. Through the peephole, Mom's familiar silhouette waited, arms crossed. "I know you're in there." "Rowan," she called, loud enough for neighbors to hear. "We need to talk about your responsibilities." Paige gave me a questioning look. I nodded, feeling suddenly calm. "This is private property," I said, after opening the door just wide enough to see her face. "You weren't invited here." Mom's eyes widened at my tone. "After all we've done for you, we gave you everything." The statement hung between us, so absurd I almost laughed. 5 years of draining my bank account for their emergencies. 2 decades of cooking, cleaning, and managing a household. While they scrolled through their phones. An entire lifetime of making myself smaller to accommodate their needs. "You took everything," I replied, my voice steady. "I was the one giving." "How dare you?" "No." The word came out stronger than I expected. "I don't need to justify my boundaries to you. I'm not coming back. I'm not giving you any more money. And if you contact my extended family again with lies about me, I'll tell them exactly what you've been doing with credit cards in my name." Mom's face contorted with an emotion I couldn't quite name. Rage, perhaps, or the disorientation of losing control. She opened her mouth, then closed it. "You'll regret this," she finally said, turning away, "when you have no one left." But as I closed the door, I realized that wasn't true. Over the next week, Paige and Darcy helped me search for affordable apartments. They drove me to viewings, offered furniture from their storage units, brought takeout when I was too exhausted to cook. "What about this one?" Darcy pointed to a listing for a studio in Columbus. "It's small, but the location is great. Walking distance to that coffee shop you like." I stared at the screen, momentarily paralyzed by the thought of signing a lease. Every major decision in my adult life had been filtered through the lens of family approval. Asterisk, what would Dad think? Would Mom consider it wasteful? Would it take resources away from Everett or Marissa's needs? Asterisk, I like the windows, I said finally, making the decision for myself alone. 2 days later, I signed the lease. $1,200 per month, $2,400 deposit. Nearly every dollar I'd managed to save since my last loan to Dad. But as I handed over the certified check, I felt lighter than I had in years. That night, I carefully organized my documentation. Bank statements showing unauthorized transfers. Credit card statements for accounts I never opened. A journal detailing 5 years of financial manipulation. While my family enjoyed their weekly dinner at Applebee's, the one I always paid for, I packed the few possessions that were truly mine. Each item I placed in boxes felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. For the first time in weeks, I slept without waking to check my phone. 2 weeks later, the morning sun slanted through Paige's kitchen window as I checked my list. One final time. 3 columns: take, leave, and document. The paper trembled slightly in my hands, but my resolve didn't waver. "Ready?" Darcy asked, leaning against the doorframe. Her auburn hair caught the light as she sipped her coffee. I nodded, folding the paper with careful precision. "I've been ready for 26 years. Paige's old Ford pickup idled in the driveway when we arrived at my parents' house, my former house. The family's cars were gone. They were at Marissa's job interview lunch, an event that conveniently gave us a 3-hour window. I slid my key into the lock one last time, the metal cool against my fingers. "Remember," I told Paige and Darcy as we stepped inside, "take photos of everything before we touch it. I'm only taking what's undeniably mine." We worked with methodical precision. I moved from room to room, photographing each space before removing my belongings. The camera clicks felt like tiny declarations of independence. "Whoa," Darcy whispered when she opened my closet. "Your clothes only take up like a quarter of the space. The rest bulges with winter coats, old printers, and boxes labeled Marissa's school things." I never had much room for myself, I said simply. In the kitchen, I reclaimed exactly 3 pots, 2 plates, and the coffee maker I purchased last Christmas. I left behind the expensive knife set Dad insisted I buy when he decided to take up cooking, a hobby he abandoned after 2 weeks. Paige found me in the bathroom, carefully removing my toiletries while leaving my mother's extensive collection untouched. You know, she said quietly, most people leaving home take extra stuff out of spite. I met her eyes in the mirror. I'm not them. We finished in just under 2 hours. The pickup bed held surprisingly little, my life compressed into a few boxes and bags. Before leaving, I walked through each room again, taking after photos that showed exactly what was removed and what remained. In my bedroom, I paused at the desk where I'd spent countless nights working overtime to meet family financial obligations. My fingers traced the wood grain one last time. You good? Darcy asked from the doorway. Almost. I opened the desk drawer and removed a single sheet of paper. It was a simple accounting of every bill I'd paid for the family over the past year, $38,756 in total. I placed it in the center of my stripped bed. The front door closed behind us with a solid click. As I placed the last box in Paige's truck, something shifted inside me. My shoulders straightened. My breath came easier. Physical weight hadn't changed, but something heavy had lifted. 40 minutes later, my phone exploded. First Dad, then Mom, then Everett. 15 messages. In 10 minutes. Where's all your stuff? Dad demanded when I finally answered. I moved out. My voice didn't shake. You need to bring everything back right now, he said. This little tantrum has gone far enough. Mom's voice cut in from the background. Tell her we'll cut her off if she doesn't come home tonight. A laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep inside me. Cut me off from what exactly? I've been supporting all of you. The silence stretched between us. Your credit cards are still linked to our accounts, Dad finally said, his voice dangerously low. We can ruin your score with one call. No, you can't. I pressed the speaker button so Paige could hear. I froze my credit this week, and I've documented every unauthorized account you opened in my name. More silence. Then Mom's voice again, softer now. Rowan, honey, we're family. Family helps family. Family doesn't steal from family, I replied. I'll text you my new number tomorrow. Use it only for emergencies. I ended the call before they could respond. When my phone showed 15 missed calls that night, I wondered if I should block their numbers completely or leave a line open for emergencies. Complete separation offered peace, but was I ready to sever all ties with the only family I'd ever known? My new apartment felt both strange and right. Paige and Darcy helped arrange my meager belongings, transforming the small studio into something that felt like mine. Plain walls held possibility rather than restriction. Housewarming gift, Darcy announced, presenting a shower curtain printed with vintage travel posters. Every home needs something colorful. Paige brought practical items, dish towels, cleaning supplies, a small toolkit. First aid for independent living, she joked. Later that week, Miles, the financial advisor Paige recommended, spread papers across my small kitchen table. His fingers were practical and steady as he pointed to numbers that once terrified me. With your income, he explained, we can create a payment plan for the fraudulent cards while still building your savings. For the first time, I saw a budget that put my needs first. No line items for Dad's truck payment. No emergency fund for Marissa's next crisis. Just my rent, my food, my future. 3 weeks after I left, the reports began. Mrs. Westerly from next door mentioned seeing Dad arguing with someone on the front lawn, man in a suit. Looked official. Your father was waving papers around. She told me when we ran into each other at the grocery store. A former neighbor emailed me photos of utility shut-off notices taped to the front door. The grass had grown long. The recycling bin overflowed with beer bottles. That night, I stood at my apartment window, watching the sunset over unfamiliar rooftops. I wondered what bills were piling up in my absence. What excuses they were telling each other. For the first time since I was 16 their financial chaos wasn't mine to solve. The thought brought not satisfaction, but a surprising lightness. I'd carried their burdens for so long, I'd forgotten how it feels to stand up straight. A week later, a black SUV screeched into the visitor parking lot of Bridgeview Apartments, tires protesting against the pavement. Through my second-floor window, I watched as Dad, Mom, and Everett spilled out like angry wasps from a disturbed nest. Dad's shirt hung untucked, a rarity for a man who once lectured me about proper presentation. Mom's hair caught the afternoon sun, revealing unwashed strands and missed brushing. Everett paced behind them, checking his phone, then shoving it back in his pocket with uncharacteristic force. I stepped away from the window, my heart drumming against my ribs. For weeks of silence, shattered by this ambush. My phone buzzed on the counter with a text from the building's front desk. Asterisk 3 people. Insisting they need to see you. Claiming to be family. Instructions. Asterisk my fingers hovered over the screen, then typed. Asterisk don't let them up. I'll handle this. Asterisk the intercom beside my door crackled to life. Rowan Elizabeth Hartley, open this door right now. Dad's voice, the same commanding tone that once sent me scurrying to obey. I pressed the intercom button. I'm not letting you up. We didn't drive 2 hours to be turned away, Mom said, her voice wavering between anger and what sounded like rehearsed desperation. The electric company shut off our power yesterday. Your father's truck is being repossessed tomorrow. Everett pushed forward. You owe us, Ro. After everything we've done for you. The familiar guilt rose like bile, but then receded as I remembered Miles' words from our financial counseling session last week. Asterisk their emergency. Planning isn't your emergency. Asterisk. If you don't help us, Dad continued, his voice dropping to that dangerous quiet I knew too. Well, we'll tell everyone what kind of daughter you really are. Your boss, your friends. They'll all know you abandoned your family when they needed you most. I took a deep breath and pressed the intercom again. I've already reported the credit fraud. Those accounts you opened in my name? The charges are being disputed. The credit bureaus have been notified. The silence that followed was profound. You wouldn't, Mom finally whispered. I did, I replied, my voice steadier than I'd ever heard it. I have copies of everything, the applications with my forged signatures, the statements, the recorded phone calls where you both admitted what you did. Your financial problems are no longer mine to solve. Dad slammed his fist against the intercom panel. We're coming up there. Security has already been called, I said, though I hadn't done so yet. Please leave. I watched through the peephole as they retreated down the hallway, Dad's shoulders rigid with fury. Minutes later, my phone chimes with a text from Darcy, who lives across the complex. Asterisk your family is tearing apart the furniture you left by the dumpster. Should I call security? Asterisk, yes, I text back. I'll be right down. The elevator ride felt endless. When the doors slid open to the lobby, I stepped out and saw Paige waiting, her face tight with concern. I called security when I saw them pull in, she says. They're on their way. Through the glass doors, I watched Dad and Everett upend my old desk chair, the one I'd used throughout college. Everett kicked at the wooden legs until one splintered. Mom stood nearby, phone raised, recording everything. We need to document this, Paige said, pulling out her phone. Security arrived, 2 officers in Navy uniforms. Those people destroying property? One asked, pointing. I nodded. They're my family. They're upset because I've moved out and reported their financial fraud. Wait here, the second officer said. Then they both pushed through the doors. What happened next unfolded like a scene from someone else's life. Dad spotted me through the glass and charged toward the building. Everett close behind. You ungrateful little, his words cut off as the security officers intercepted him. This is private property, the first officer stated. You need to leave now. That's my daughter. Dad pointed at me, spittle flying. She owes us. Sir, step back, the officer warned. Instead, Dad shoved past him, triggering a blur of motion as both officers restrained him. Everett lunged forward, grabbing at one officer's arm. Mom screamed, her phone still recording. Within minutes, police cruisers arrived, their lights painting the parking lot in red and blue. The property manager appeared beside me, clipboard in hand. That's $3,600 in damages so far, she said, pointing to the furniture, a damaged planter, and the intercom panel. Will you be pressing charges? I watched as Dad and Everett were handcuffed and led to separate cruisers, both still shouting. Mom stood alone, suddenly small in the chaos they created. Yes, I said, quietly. I'll press charges. 2 days later, a rumor reached me through Paige's cousin, who works at the courthouse. Everett, with his prior record for vandalism, faced 14 months in state prison if convicted. That same afternoon, Darcy mentioned seeing Mom at urgent care, apparently suffering from severe anxiety and elevated blood pressure since the incident. I was organizing my sparse kitchen when the certified letter arrived. I signed for it with steady hands, already knowing what it contained, a court summons to testify about the property damage. As I placed the unopened envelope on my counter, I realized this isn't over. Maybe it never will be, but for the first time, I'm not the one paying the price for their choices. 3 months later, the sunlight streamed through my kitchen window, casting golden patterns across the countertop. I sipped coffee from a mug that read, "Worth it, Paige's housewarming gift 3 months ago." No one barged in demanding breakfast. No one complained about the noise of my coffee grinder. The peaceful morning ritual belonged entirely to me. I opened my banking app, smiling at the savings account balance. 6 months ago, that money would have vanished into Dad's truck payment or Marissa's emergency shopping spree. Now it's earmarked for my vacation to Maine. My first real vacation in 7 years. My phone buzzed with a text from my boss. *, congrats again on the promotion. Team can't wait to see what you do with the social media campaign. *, the promotion came 3 months after moving out. Turns out focus and productivity skyrocket when you're not constantly solving someone else's problems. The calendar notification popped up. Birthday dinner, 7 p.m., my 27th birthday. I ran my fingers along the edge of the dining table, small but mine. The apartment still smelled faintly of the fresh paint I'd chose myself. Later that evening, Paige arrived first, bearing a bakery box. "Happy birthday, Boundary Queen," she announced, placing a chocolate cake on the counter. Darcy followed with a wrapped package. "You're going to hate it," she warned with a mischievous grin. Miles arrived last, carrying flowers and a cookbook. "For the woman who reclaimed her kitchen," he said, his smile warming something deep inside me. We gathered around my small table. The gifts they bring aren't measured in dollar amounts. Darcy's handmade pottery mug, Paige's framed photo of us at the lake, Miles's cookbook filled with sticky notes marking recipes he thinks I'd enjoy. "Remember last year?" Paige asked, cutting the cake. "Hard to forget discount candles with the price tag still attached," I say with a lightness that surprises me, but it was the best terrible birthday ever. It finally pushed me to tell my story. "To freedom through boundaries." Miles raised his glass. "To boundaries that build rather than walls that isolate," I added. Darcy lifted her glass. "To chosen family." We clinked glasses, these people who saw my worth when I couldn't see it myself. 2 weeks later, I stood before 15 anxious faces at the community center's financial literacy workshop. "Financial abuse can look like love?" I explained. "It often comes disguised as family responsibility or helping out." A woman in the back row dabbed at her eyes. I recognized that look, the dawning realization that sacrifice without reciprocity isn't love. After the workshop, Miles waited by my car. "Ready to look at that 2-bedroom next week?" he asks. Our fingers intertwine naturally now, the relationship evolving with the steady pace of mutual respect. On the drive home, I passed my parents' house. The lawn had grown wild, newspapers piled on. The porch and plywood covered one front window. A for sale sign leaned crookedly in the yard. I didn't slow down. As I drove past the house where I'd given so much of myself, I wondered if sacrifice without boundaries is really love at all. Would you have pressed charges against your own family? Or is there a point where even blood ties must yield to self-preservation? What small boundary could you set this week to protect your own worth? The road ahead curved toward home, my real home, and I pressed the accelerator.